hours later, there is still that gray smoke rising from lower Manhattan into the sky.
With a little bit of white smoke, it seems, around the bottom there, so perhaps they are finally beginning to get in there and attack the heart of this thing. Brian Thompson standing by right now at Newark. Is he at Newark Airport? Yes, Brian Thompson's at Newark Airport.
The rescue workers returning here, it's still that steady flow of people coming out of the financial district, and an ash and dust just covers the area. One thing I'd like to bring up right now, we can't get a TV signal down here, and because of all the problems with cellular and all, we're not hearing really the broadcast. The wild stories that are now emulating, and that's almost becoming frightening here. Everybody's coming by. I'm not even going to repeat the things that people are speculating on right now, and that's one of the real scares that you have out here, people reacting to all of that, and they are some hairy stories as well. So this is where, we count on you guys to kind of centralize everything and keep it in order for us. So we'll continue on watch. Probably we'll be handing off to some other people in a little while, and we'll continue our coverage, tomorrow morning as well. So I'll say goodbye to you guys right now.
Okay, Larry, thank you very much for staying with us.
Mr. Burnett, with your expertise with the National Transportation Safety Board, how could this clearly choreographed act of war take place out of separate airports?
Well, again, I think it indicates a level of sophistication about our system, about the strength of the security in our system. It also reflects the ability to operate aircraft in our system to a certain extent.
Well, what happens when a pilot
with the Pittsburgh aircraft?
Jim, what happens when what is a pilot supposed to do when they realize they are under hijack alert? What do they do?
Well, you have to realize that most of the training for flight crews in the United States has been to be very accommodating to hijackers in order to give a chance for negotiation to take place. It's not been a highly confrontational situation, and it's not been geared toward people who had the intention of flying a plane into a building, or even the capability of doing that. So what we have been prepared for through our previous events is something quite different from what we've experienced today.
Mr. Burnett, how drastically, if at all?
As the debris rained down, blowing shoes, briefcases, pencils, and other articles from people's desks, the blinding smoke enveloped most of Lower Manhattan's world-famous skyline. Within an hour, the towers were falling down.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
At St. Vincent's Hospital, stretchers lined the streets. Doctors and nurses stood by with IV bottles as ambulance after ambulance arrived, carrying survivors clearly still in shock. Even the city's emergency medical workers themselves among the victims, firefighters and police officers. One couple answered the call for blood donations.
I saw the second tower come down. I saw more than I ever wanted to see in one day.
And it was enough to bring you down here to help. What do you hope to do here?
There's nothing else we can do, but give blood is something we can do, and I hope everybody who can do that will do that.
Obviously, people know where.
A lot of them are just standing here helpless, wanting to go in and try to fight the fire, but just can't get any closer because of safety problems.
And Rose, is your sense that there are enough emergency personnel there once they can? I mean, give us a sense of how many emergency personnel you see.
There's an absolute small army of fire safety people. I mean, I even see Immigration and Naturalization Service officers, federal marshals. There are trucks from all over New York. I see license plates, New Jersey, people from upstate New York. There's just a small army of people here, but there's just really not a whole lot that they can do for whoever may be left right now, because it is just such a dangerous situation.
CNN producer Rose Arce, she's talking to us right now. She's a few blocks away from the World Trade Center, describing efforts by rescue personnel who just cannot get close because it is still a very dangerous situation. You heard her say large pieces of debris still coming down, and these pictures we're showing you, all of them taken earlier in the day since the first airplane hit the World Trade Center about 8:48 this morning. And again, these are those still pictures that Aaron first referred to a few minutes ago. Still pictures of a commercial jetliner. This was the second one to come in. This was the plane the United Airlines Flight 175 that we now know has to be the one that Boeing 767 bound from Boston to Los Angeles. Instead, it ended up inside and going through incomprehensibly one of the towers of the World Trade Center. Just about a block and a half away here in Washington, a block and a half away from the White House, CNN senior White House correspondent John King. John, you were not traveling, of course, with President Bush, who went to Florida yesterday, but you have been talking to a number of people around the president.
Who have again brought their tugboats down, which can also suck water out of the river and then have connected to different hoses in the general area and are able to then put water onto this fire without having to go into the water mains. It's hard to say, perhaps some of the water mains may have even been damaged by this actual explosion and collapse of these buildings. But again, we have some unusual firefighting equipment in this area, which definitely the smoke is getting much, much thicker now. As we're looking at our window, we're hovering at about 1,600 feet, 1,500 feet. And I'm telling you, this smoke is probably 5,000 feet into the air. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And again, the smoke is getting much, much thicker. It seems to have rekindled. Something seems to have caught on fire, which obviously is adding a lot of fuel to this fire. And don't forget, it's not just one building that we're talking about on fire. Several buildings are on fire at this point. Many buildings have totally disappeared, not just the World Trade Center. We were looking at the World Financial Center earlier. All you can see that remains of the World Financial Center is the very front of the building. As I said before, we are the only air traffic control which is up. Air traffic control has asked us to land. We have been the only aircraft allowed for a couple hours at this point, and they have now asked us to land. So we're going to do that, and we're going to send it back to you. Back to you in the studio.
Rolling in these new pieces of videotape. So much has been done, Lester, in the last few years in terms of the victims' families. It's at least easier these days with what the airlines are forced to do on your behalf after something like this.
They do. They have systems in place for tragedies, but I don't know this is one that you can plan for. You certainly plan for the eventuality of you'll lose a plane and you will lose passengers. But here's a case where they can't even release the passenger list because that's evidence. The FBI is going to want to know first who was on those airplanes. This is a criminal investigation. One thing we should point out that these all four planes were modern airplanes, so they will likely have the most sophisticated flight data recorders, and maybe more important in this case, the flight cockpit recorders will tell us ultimately who was in control of the airplane, what struggle may have precipitated the actual hijacking, what went on in the cockpit. So that, as we would see in a normal crash situation, of which this isn't, that'll be one of the searches, and all that rubble we're looking at right there under that dust are going to be 4 flight recorders, 2 data recorders, and 2 cockpit voice recorders that will be critical to this investigation.
All right, Lester Holt, thanks. We'll continue to check in with you. 2 more colleagues are in Lower Manhattan, Ashley Banfield and Rick Sanchez. Ashley?
I just wanted to show you something that that Rick and I have found with the help of some of the onlookers as well. A lot of
at these 2 buildings, the smoke just billowing, smoke throughout the sky. The Twin Towers were a great place to get a view of New York City skyline, to get a view of the harbor, the Statue of Liberty. Something else that was in that building, I know we talked about banking and security and all different businesses in that building. A famous restaurant, Windows on the World. I took a wine class there back in the early 90s. A fabulous, beautiful restaurant where people used to go to eat so they could see New York City. This was definitely a mainstay. People will not, it will take forever to get over it. I know a lot of people have been talking about the fact that some people knew some people who were in the building, others didn't know people in the building, but once again, this is something that everybody in New York feels whether or not you knew them. The other thing that is just incredible